$200. That's it. That's all it would have taken for you to start building a position in a handful of stocks that Wall Street has been sleeping on, stocks that are trading for pennies on the dollar compared to what they're actually worth. And by the time this video ends, you're going to know exactly the 4 companies I'm talking about, why the market has gotten them so wrong, and why the next few years could look very different for the people who buy in. Now, instead of waiting until everyone else catches on. If that sounds like something you want in your corner, go ahead and hit that subscribe button right now. Because on Ticker Hawk, we break down stocks like this every single week, and you don't want to miss the next one. Now, before I hand you the 4 names, I want to slow down for 1 second. Because there's a mistake that a lot of new investors make, and it's an easy one to fall into. They see a stock trading at $15 a share and they think, well, that's cheap. I can afford a lot of shares. This must be a bargain. But price and value are 2 completely different things. A stock trading at $15 can be wildly overpriced, and a stock trading at $400 can be a screaming bargain. What actually matters is what the business underneath that stock price is worth. If a company's true worth, based on its cash flow, its growth, its competitive position, comes out to $20 a share, and the market is only charging you $15, that's not just cheap, that's undervalued. That gap between price and worth is where real investors make their money over time. Think of it like buying a used car. If someone offers you a car for $3,000, that number by itself tells you nothing. Is it a good deal or a terrible one? It depends entirely on the condition of the engine, the mileage, whether it's been in an accident, and how long it's likely to keep running before it falls apart on you. The price tag is just a number floating in space until you compare it against the actual condition of what's underneath it. Stocks work exactly the same way. A share price on its own is meaningless. What matters is comparing that price against a genuine estimate of what the company is worth, based on how much cash it generates, how fast it's growing, and how strong its position is against the competition. Once you start thinking that way, you stop chasing stocks just because they look cheap on the surface, and you start hunting for the ones where the market has genuinely mispriced a good business. So keep that idea in your head as we go through these 4 companies, because in every single case, we're not just looking at low prices, we're looking at a real discount to what these businesses are actually worth. And that distinction is going to matter more over the next few years than it has in a long time, especially with how choppy markets have become lately. Let's start with the first one, and it's a name a lot of you have probably heard of, but maybe never taken seriously as an investment, and that's SoFi. This is a digital financial services company that started out doing student loan refinancing and has since expanded into just about everything: checking accounts, credit cards, investing, personal loans, even banking services for other fintech apps behind the scenes. Right now, shares are trading in the high teens, which on its own doesn't tell you much, but when you look at where this business is heading, the picture gets a lot more interesting. SoFi has shifted a big part of its lending operation toward what's called an asset-light model, meaning instead of holding on to every loan it originates and carrying all that risk on its own balance sheet, it originates the loan and then sells a large chunk of it off to other investors and institutions who are hungry for that kind of yield. That means SoFi collects fees for originating and servicing the loan without having to sit there and hope the borrower pays it back. That's a much safer, more scalable way to grow, and it's a big part of why revenue and membership numbers have kept climbing quarter after quarter. On top of that, SoFi has big ambitions. It wants to be a one-stop shop for your entire financial life. And companies that swing for the fences, that carry more risk, sure, but they also carry a lot more upside if even part of that vision comes true. When you run the numbers on where this company is likely headed over the next several years, plenty of reasonable estimates put the fair value meaningfully above where the stock sits today, which is exactly the kind of gap we're looking for. And it's worth remembering that a business with this much ambition doesn't come without risk. Trying to be everything for everyone in financial services is a much harder path than picking one narrow niche and dominating it. There will almost certainly be bumps along the way, quarters where growth slows, or competitive pressure from bigger banks trying to copy the playbook. But that's exactly why the reward on the other side tends to be bigger too. Companies that succeed at broad, ambitious visions tend to become the next generation of dominant financial brands. And right now, the market is pricing SoFi like it might not get there, while the underlying numbers suggest otherwise. Before we move to the next one, I want to ask you a quick favor. If you're finding this breakdown useful, drop a comment and let me know which of these 4 companies you already own, or which one surprised you the most, because I read every single comment and it genuinely helps this video reach more people who need to hear it. The second stock on the list is Chewy, the online retailer that basically owns the pet supply space on the internet. Shares here are trading in the low 20s. And yet, this is a business riding two massive long-term tailwinds at the same time. The first one is what people in the industry call the humanization of pets, which is just a fancy way of saying that pet owners keep spending more and more money on their animals every single year, treating them less like animals and more like family members, and that shows up directly in how much each customer spends with Chewy annually. The second tailwind is the ongoing shift, from buying pet supplies in a physical store to buying them online, and Chewy has positioned itself as one of the dominant players capturing that shift. But here's the part that really makes Chewy stand out to me. Roughly 80% of its revenue comes from auto-ship subscriptions, meaning customers set up recurring deliveries of food, treats, and supplies on a schedule, and Chewy doesn't have to guess what's coming. It already knows. That predictability lets the company manage inventory, logistics, and cash flow far more efficiently than a typical retailer that's guessing at demand every single week. A business with that kind of visibility into future revenue, combined with strong secular growth in its category, deserves a premium valuation, not a discount. And yet, the market has been pricing this stock like a company with a lot less certainty than it actually has. There's also something worth noting about how sticky pet ownership spending really is. When budgets get tight, people cut back on plenty of things: vacations, dining out, new clothes. But a surprising number of pet owners keep buying food, medication, and basic supplies for their animals almost no matter what. Because for a lot of households, the family dog or cat isn't treated as an optional expense. It's treated as a member of the family who needs to be taken care of, regardless of the economy. That kind of spending. Resilience is exactly the sort of thing that makes a business more predictable and, in turn, more valuable than the market currently seems to be giving it credit for. Now let's talk about a name that's gotten a lot more controversial over the past year and a half, and that's DraftKings. This is the online sports betting and gaming operator that spent the better part of a decade going state by state, working with regulators, building out licenses one jurisdiction at a time, doing things the slow, expensive, compliant way. Shares are sitting around the mid-20s right now, well below where a lot of analysts think the business should be valued based on its growth trajectory. The reason for that gap comes down to one word: prediction markets. Over roughly the last year and a half, regulatory enforcement around sports wagering has loosened up significantly, and that's opened the door for prediction market platforms to offer what looks an awful lot like sports betting without going through the same licensing process DraftKings spent years and hundreds of millions of dollars completing. That's created real near-term competitive pressure, and it's a big reason the stock has lagged. But here's the thing about regulation. It swings like a pendulum. What one administration loosens, the next one can tighten right back up, especially once enough controversy builds around it. And there's already been plenty of controversy, including reports of people with inside access to information, like production staff who see speeches or announcements before they're made public, placing well-timed wagers on prediction platforms tied to those events. That kind of conflict of interest is exactly the sort of thing that tends to draw regulatory scrutiny sooner or later. And if that scrutiny lands on the prediction market platforms the way it once landed on offshore sportsbooks, DraftKings could find itself with a lot less competitive pressure than it has today. Add to that the simple, ongoing shift toward people wanting to place a bet from their phone instead of driving to a physical sportsbook, and you've got a company facing a temporary headwind sitting inside a much bigger multi-year tailwind. It also helps to remember just how much groundwork DraftKings has already laid that a newer competitor simply cannot replicate overnight. Building relationships with individual state regulators, securing licenses market by market, and building brand trust with millions of users over the better part of a decade is not something that gets undone in a single election cycle or a single wave of looser enforcement. Moats built on regulation and trust tend to be some of the most durable moats in any industry, precisely because they take years to build and years to tear down. And that's a big part of why the current mispricing on this stock looks more like a temporary overreaction than a permanent change in the company's prospects. If you're still with me, go ahead and hit that like button. It genuinely helps this video get shown to more people who are trying to figure out where to put their money right now. And I promise, the next stock on this list is one you probably weren't expecting. That fourth stock is Clorox, and yes, the disinfecting wipes company. You probably remember not being able to find these on a store shelf anywhere during the pandemic, when demand went completely vertical and people were practically fighting over the last package in the aisle. Shares are trading in the mid-90s right now, and based on the strength, brand loyalty, and long-term earning power of this business, a solid case can be made that fair value sits well above $100 a share. So why the discount? Consumers have been tightening their belts, trading down from name brand cleaning products to store brand alternatives to save a few dollars here and there, and that trend has weighed on Clorox's numbers over the past several quarters. And it's probably going to continue for at least a little while longer as household budgets stay stretched. But this is a company that has been through economic cycles before, and every single time, as household budgets loosen back up, brand loyal customers tend to come back to the names they trust. And Clorox has one of the strongest brand moats in the entire consumer staples category. A durable, cash-generating business trading at this kind of discount too. Its long-term value doesn't come around very often, and that scarcity is exactly why this one made the list. What a lot of people forget about companies like Clorox is that they've survived and thrived through recessions, inflation spikes, supply chain disruptions, and shifting consumer habits for decades, because household cleaning and disinfecting products are about as close to a permanent human need as you can get. People are always going to clean their homes, always going to want to disinfect their kitchens and bathrooms, and always going to reach for a brand they recognize and trust once their budget loosens. Back up even a little. That kind of staying power is exactly the sort of quality that tends to reward patient investors who are willing to buy during the temporary rough patch instead of waiting for the headlines to turn positive again, by which point the discount is usually long gone. So here's the big picture takeaway from all four of these companies. In every single case, we didn't just look for a low sticker price. We looked for a real gap between what the market is charging and what the business is actually worth underneath the hood. That's the entire game when it comes to investing on a budget. You don't need thousands of dollars to start. You need the discipline to separate a cheap stock from an undervalued one. And once you can tell the difference, $200 is more than enough to start building real positions in businesses that the rest of the market hasn't fully appreciated yet. It's also worth remembering that none of these four ideas are guaranteed winners, and nobody, including me, has a crystal ball that tells us exactly where any of these stocks will be trading a year from now. What we can do is stack the odds in our favor by focusing on real businesses with real earnings power, trading at prices that don't reflect their true worth, and then giving those investments enough time to play out. That's a completely different approach than chasing whatever stock happens to be trending on social media this week. And over the long run, it's the approach that tends to actually build wealth instead of just creating a lot of exciting stories to tell at a dinner party. Patience is genuinely the hardest part of investing, harder than finding the ideas themselves, because the market can stay wrong about a stock for a lot longer than most people expect, and it takes real discipline to hold on through the noise until the price eventually catches up to the value. Before you go, let me know down in the comments which one of these four you'd buy first if you only had $200 to work with: SoFi, Chewy, DraftKings, or Clorox. I want to hear your reasoning. And if this kind of breakdown is helpful to you, share it with someone you know who's trying to get started investing but doesn't know where to begin. And if you haven't already, subscribe to Tickerhawk, because next week we're digging into another set of names the market is mispricing right now, and you're going to want to be here for it. I'll see you in the next one.